The funeral of Ripon Katia, the passenger who was brutally murdered by the hijackers. As images from the funeral are broadcast on television screens across the globe, pressure on the Indian government to resolve the crisis begins to mount. But the Indian Prime Minister, Vajpayee, appears unrelenting.
We don't know as yet what the hijackers want. But whatever it is they want, this is not the way to go about it. India will not bow down nor be afraid of their inhuman threats.
The Indian government does not recognize the Taliban regime in Afghanistan and has been amongst its most vocal critics. But if a solution is to be found to the crisis, they need to start talking to them.
We are expecting that the Indians will come soon and take it very serious, but it seems that they are very cool.
It's not just the Indian government that's uncomfortable with the fact that IC-814 is in Kandahar, Afghanistan. Inexplicably, the hijackers too want the aircraft refueled at the earliest and for it to be flown out of Kandahar. The pilots, though, refuse to cooperate. They insist that it's unsafe to fly the aircraft again without a thorough engineering inspection. IC-814 isn't going anywhere for now. But the hijackers aren't sitting idle. They've gained access to the cargo hold through a trap door in the cockpit.
I could hear noises, something is happening in the cargo hold. I knew that some bag is there and they wanted to remove the bag.
The hijackers eventually managed to retrieve a bag from the cargo hold.
In the morning, I went to the cockpit. I could see a lot of different kind of weapons, different color of hand grenades. Then the pedestal was full of bullets.
It is now clear that the hijacking has been planned with meticulous detail. But how far will the hijackers go, and what do they want? Back in Delhi, the relatives of the passengers get together. Angered by the Indian government's inability to end the crisis, they storm the high-level press conference of Jaswant Singh, the External Affairs Minister, demanding the government secure the release of the passengers.
Will he keep us informed in future so that we don't have to grope around in the dark and create pressure, such a big party?
Television networks around the globe grab the story, further increasing pressure on the Indian government to negotiate with the hijackers.
Where is the ego? The Kashmir problem is a political problem.
Finally, the Indian government puts together a team of negotiators who land in Kandahar, Afghanistan on the 27th of December, 4 days after IC-814 was first taken over by the hijackers. Unknown to the Taliban, the Indians have a team of crack commandos hidden on board. Clearly, the Indians are keeping open the option of storming IC-814.
Immediately when we landed up, we found that we were surrounded by the Taliban irregulars, people very shabbily dressed, carrying various types of weapons, taking positions which are not the conventional tactical positions for protection of an aircraft. It was almost like an offensive positions.
With the Taliban militia taking offensive positions around the aircraft the Indian negotiators have arrived in, a lightning strike by the Indian commandos isn't a feasible option. The only way forward for the Indians is to begin negotiating with the hijackers.
Chief was talking to them. Must have touched a switch. It was all around the plane. And he said that there can be no compromise in the case of Maulana. We don't know who Maulana was.
Finally, it becomes clear. The hijackers' main objective is the release of Maulana Masood Azhar, the Secretary General of the Harkat-ul-Mujahideen, a militant organization operating in the Kashmir Valley.
This was not a commander of large armies. It was not a commander of thousands of men. It was instead a commander of a very small number of people, but people he could inspire to act with a ferocity and commitment perhaps no other organization could inspire in its cadre at that point.
Arrested in 1994, Maulana Masood Azhar was incarcerated in the Kot Balwal jail in the troubled state of Jammu and Kashmir, the disputed region over which India and Pakistan fought 3 wars. Several attempts had been made to secure his release. In 2 of these attempts, foreign tourists had been kidnapped and murdered. An attempted jailbreak had resulted in an accomplice being killed by jail guards and Maulana trapped in a tunnel that proved too small for him. This attempt, however, is on a different scale. Indian intelligence agencies have also discovered a startling fact, that the chief hijacker is the younger brother of Maulana Masood Azhar. Maulana Masood Azhar was the first demand of the hijackers. But it takes the Indian negotiating team over 30 hours of hard negotiating to get the complete list of demands from the hijackers.
In addition to Mohammed Masood Azhar, release of 35 others, return of the coffin of the terrorist Sajjad Afghani, a payment by India of $200 million. We will send our appropriate response to the negotiating team in Kandahar. In the meantime, let the country and the international community too reflect on this.
As negotiations continue, surprisingly, the Taliban intervene and convince the hijackers to drop their demand for the money and the body of Sajjad Afghani, saying these are un-Islamic. It is the 5th day of captivity for the passengers and crew of IC-814, and as conditions within the plane worsen, the waiting becomes unbearable.
My brother-in-law, who was with me, ate just once in 8 days because the toilets were overflowing.
Especially seeing my family captive, especially seeing the discomfort, the physical threat that they were under, that really angered me.
People had sort of given up all hopes. I, for one, I had reached a point where I said, enough is enough. You want to blow it apart, you want to kill anybody, including me, go right ahead. But let's get over and done with this because patience was nearing its end.
As news of the conditions in the plane reached the relatives and media in India, there is increasing pressure on the negotiators to reach a settlement. But with neither side giving way, is this possible? It appears that a breakthrough has been achieved on the 29th, the 6th day of the hijacking drama, when the hijackers agree to release 35 women and children as a gesture of goodwill.
The segregation or the release of women and children would have meant that only men would be left on board. And somewhere it gives you the eerie feeling that if they have to dispense with us, they will without batting an eyelid.
At that time, I just turned around and looked at them. I was like, you can't go. It's very easy to die yourself, but it's impossible to see your family or your near or dear ones die. You can't see that.
But as the hours pass by, hope of a settlement vanishes again. In fact, the negotiations break down completely.